Coming up on Arirang News, North Korea holds a rare congress of its ruling Workers' Party. There, the regime's leader, Kim Jong-un, admits that the North's most recent 5-year plan has failed and says he'll be proposing new policies. South Korea reports a declining number of new COVID-19 cases, a sign the country's strategies are working and that it's past the peak of the third wave. And South Korea's main stock index, the KOSPI, marks a new milestone, crossing above 3,000 points for the first time. It's 5 p.m. here in Seoul. Thanks for tuning into Arirang News. I'm Devin Whiting. South Korea is starting to see the number of daily cases of COVID-19 come down, a sign the country's anti-virus strategies are working. There's a long way to go, but a top official says the third wave of the virus is past its peak. Our Kim Do-yeon has the details.
South Korea reported 840 new cases of COVID-19 on Wednesday, of which 809 were local transmissions. Most of those new cases were from the capital region, and with the recent increase in daily fatalities from COVID-19, 1% of Seoul City's COVID-19 infections have resulted in death. Despite this, the health authorities say the strain on medical infrastructure is easing. During the briefing, the health authorities acknowledged a downward trend.
The average number of new cases in the past week has fallen into the 800s. It shows the current trend is downward and is past its peak. However, considering the slow sign of spread in the local community, the decline is expected to be slow.
With recent outbreaks at nursing homes, health authorities have sent response teams to 2 senior care centers and transported most of the COVID-19 patients to designated medical facilities. In addition, local governments will run designated infectious disease nursing care hospitals for COVID-19 patients from nursing homes as they need critical care once infected due to their age. For the mental care hospitals, residents who test positive will quickly be transported to other designated facilities. Those with mild symptoms will be moved to mental care hospitals that are prepared to care for patients with COVID-19. Those who are critically ill will be transported to a hospital that treats infectious disease. From December 15 to January 5th, there have been around 339 reported COVID-19 cases from 6 mental care hospitals. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
South Korea will see the coldest weather of the season in the next few days, and so the temporary COVID-19 testing sites in the Seoul area, many of them outdoors, will be reducing their hours until Sunday. Starting tomorrow, for the well-being of medical personnel and those getting tested, they'll only be open from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. There are 143 temporary testing sites in the region, and they'll all be back on their regular schedule from next week. They're normally open from 9 to 5 on weekdays. These sites were set up last month to boost testing and stop South Korea's third wave of the virus. South Korea's main stock index broke through 3,000 points today for the first time, but by the close it was lower. The KOSPI closed at 2968, but at one point was as high as 3,027. Strong buying by retail investors, though institutions were selling. It was 13 years ago that the index broke through 2,000. The tech-heavy KOSDAQ closed at 981, down about 0.4%. The South Korean government is going to start distributing a third round of relief payments to small business owners and temporary workers from next Monday. This round, for those hit hardest by the antivirus restrictions, will be worth around up to around $2,700. Ji-young has the details.
In order to help those most affected by the outbreak, the South Korean government will roll out another round of disaster relief funds. The more than $8.5 billion of funds will be given out from next Monday. Finance Minister Hong Nam-gi explained the funds in an economic ministerial meeting on Wednesday.
We will go all out so that about 90% of those who are eligible can get them before the Korean Lunar New Year holidays.
He added that the remaining 10% will be able to get the fund by March. About $460 each will be handed out to some 650,000 non-permanent workers and certain freelancers. Those eligible will get text messages on Wednesday containing the application procedure. and roughly 2.8 million small business owners who have been hit hard by the pandemic will be given up to $2,700 each. Those small business owners who qualify but did not face any virus prevention restrictions will be able to get about $920. Text messages will be sent to all eligible small business owners on Monday, and they'll be able to apply online through the website shown in the text message. Also, the government will execute the roughly $921 million deal with U.S. biotech company Moderna to purchase COVID-19 vaccines for 20 million people. The country plans to start giving people the vaccine from February, and medical staff and the elderly will be first in line. 엄지영, Arirang News.
North Korea's ruling party is holding a rare Congress this week, and in his opening speech there, the regime's leader Kim Jong-un acknowledged that North Korea's most recent five-year plan has failed. Kim Dami reports.
North Korea raised the curtain Tuesday morning on its 8th Workers' Party Congress in Pyongyang. Kim Jong-un opened the proceedings with a speech in which he admitted that the regime's most recent five-year economic development plan has failed. Results in most areas, he said, have fallen far short of the targets. Kim said he will propose new policies so that what he called external and internal challenges no longer hinder development, an apparent reference to a series of natural disasters that have hit the North and the sanctions imposed on it by the United States and the international community.
Here, Kim Jong-un has shown rather forthright leadership. He acknowledged the failure openly in order to highlight that he and the regime's officials are actively communicating with their people.
Also in Tuesday's meeting, the members of the party's top leadership, the Presidium, were reshuffled. Over 70% of the members are new, including Kim's sister Kim Yo-jong.
Compared to the last party congress in 2016, the Kim Jong-un regime has not been so successful. Kim replaced these representatives to come up with new strategies.
Details from this Congress have been few and far between. Contrast this to the last Congress 5 years ago when the regime unveiled a specific schedule 10 days in advance. Observers point out that the North is trying to highlight the significance of the event by making various announcements a surprise. On the last day, there could be a military parade. The previous Congress lasted 4 days, but this time observers say it will likely wrap up after 3 days given the COVID-19 situation. On top of that, January 8th is Kim Jong-un's birthday. Tuesday's session was attended by some 7,000 people, including roughly 5,000 delegates, possibly an attempt to signal that the regime has the pandemic under control. North Korea still claims to have 0 confirmed cases of COVID-19. Kim Dami, Arirang News.
Time for an in-depth look at the market news this afternoon, and for that I'm joined on the line by Dr. Yang Jun-seok, professor of economics at the Catholic University of Korea. Professor Yang, thanks for coming on today.
Happy to be here.
Well, stocks in New York were a little higher overnight, bouncing back from the big decline on Monday. Investors watching carefully to see how the Senate race turns out in Georgia. Right now, based on the results, the futures are somewhat mixed. So what's the story in the global markets?
Okay, well, as you mentioned, after ending the year on or near record highs, U.S. markets fell on Monday by 1.3 to 1.5%, depending on the index. And it has been the highest sell-off since October. But on Tuesday, it recovered about half of what it lost on Tuesday. And the fall on Monday is attributed to, as you said, the runoff elections in Georgia, as well as the worsening coronavirus situation. And the rebound today is attributed partially to higher ISM manufacturing purchasing managers index, which came in above market expectations and is at the highest level since August 2018, which hints at a solid future performance for manufacturing. But I cannot help but wonder whether this is just an excuse. My personal opinion is that because the stock market right now is running so much on excess liquidity from a very expansionary monetary policy, people are just nervous about the current heights of the market. So after hitting record highs, there seems to be some attempt at profit taking, and then carefully rising again and then profit taking. So we're going to see probably these record highs and then falls throughout the year until the expansionary monetary policy moderates. Europe, the European indices seem different country to country. The UK FTSE rose in the new year, completely recovering from the dip at the end of the year. They are attributing this to the last-minute trade deal, which did not end up in no-deal Brexit. German DAX continues to fall from December 28th after hitting a record high, and that's presumably because of the coronavirus situation. And French CAC gained on Monday but lost it all on Tuesday. So European markets seem very nervous as well. The Asian markets, Hang Seng and Shanghai, continued their rise, which started at the end of last year, but Nikkei is falling in the new year after hitting a 30-year high on December 29th. That's, again, attributed to worsening coronavirus situation around Tokyo. But as we can see, the most global markets seem to be nervous about hitting these record highs. So after hitting these record highs, you're having this fall so that the investors can take some profit taking and then rising again after a couple of days of fall.
Well, now here in Korea, the big news, of course, today, the KOSPI breaking through 3,000 for the first time. That was in the morning. Then it came down a bit, traded in a tight range, and in the end was lower. There was high volume today, though. Tell us about the trade in the local market, Professor.
Okay, well, it hit a record high of 3,027.16 early in the morning before 10 o'clock, but it fell for the rest of the day. So if you look at the entire day, it fell 0.75%, ended at 2,968.21. But as you said, it was a very heavy trading day. Individuals bought more than 2 trillion won worth of stock. These individuals seem to think that this falling price for stocks is an opportunity rather than disappointment. And institutions and foreigners, again, they seem to be experiencing some nervousness because those sold their shares, especially in electronics. Now, attention will be on the fourth quarter earning report, which comes out throughout January, because right now the price earning ratio is at 13.47, which is higher than the 10-year average PER for KOSPI, which is 9.8, and 5-year average at 10.1. So we'll have to look at the earnings to see whether the market is in the phase of bubble or not. KOSDAQ, you have basically a similar story. It started very high, fell throughout the day. For the day, it went down by 0.44%. It ended at 981.39. And again, individuals bought, institutions and foreigners sold.
Well, now, switching gears here for a minute, Korea's shipbuilding industry in 2020 is projected to have been #1 in the world for a third year in a row. Some much-needed orders coming in the latter half of the year. Tell us about that performance last year and how you see it going this year.
Okay, well, shipbuilding did incredibly well in December. It rose 105.9% over December of last year. But for the 2020 entire year, it actually fell by 2.0%. Now, one of the reasons why Korea shipbuilding did well this year, at least relative to other countries, was that volume of shipbuilding has been down generally because of the coronavirus, the lack of trade demand, resulting in lack of demand for new ships, and the low volume of trade in oil, which also reduced demand for oil transports. But Korean shipbuilding industry seems to be optimistic about the shipbuilding industry, at least for the next year, because there's a set of stronger environmental regulations coming in next year, so that the industry feels that there will be an increased demand for new ships which are environmentally friendly. Korean Export-Import Bank estimated in November that global shipbuilding orders will rise by 115% by value, and Korean orders will rise by 105% in terms of value. Now, So this may increase the demand for the Korean shipbuilding industry in the next year, but whether it'll continue beyond that is still an open question. The demand next year is estimated to come from the environmentally friendly ships, but once those environmentally friendly ships are initially made, will there be additional demand? That depends on what happened with the coronavirus, what happens with the trade volume, what happens with the oil trade, and all of those are right now unknown.
They sure are, Professor. All right, we'll have to leave it there for today. Thanks so much for sharing your insights with us.
Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of this newscast. Thank you for watching. More live news coming your way at 7 p.m. Korea time.